Ole Miss has major needs in the transfer portal, but is it more important just to get the elite player, talking some recruiting, and also what's going on the injury front with the Rebels?
Locked On presents The Portal, the daily podcast covering college football recruiting and everything NIL. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Welcome back into the Portal Podcast, where you get your daily recruiting, NIL, and transfer portal news. I'm your host, Brian Smith, longtime college football writer and recruiting analyst. Thank you for making the Portal Podcast your first listen each and every day. We're going to feature the Ole Miss Rebels today with my guy, Stephen Willis, and we're going to talk about maybe the biggest name in the spring window has already put his name out there. We're going to talk about Xavier Hill, a kid who's actually from the state of Mississippi. The Rebels are 100% expected to be at least in the mix there. And we're also going to talk recruiting. They have major official visits coming up. What are their needs? And then finally, how is Ole Miss shaping up from the spring? Who's injured? What's trending with the Rebels? And to make all of that happen, again, my guy here is Stephen Willis from Locked On Ole Miss. Stephen, is there anything surprising to you in the portal anymore? Like when somebody gets in, are you ever surprised? Just want to open with that.
No, not really anymore. It's like Xavier Hill got in, and before he got in, I wasn't even thinking about an offensive line need potentially for the spring portal for Ole Miss. It wasn't a situation like that. And then Hill gets in, and you're like, well, yeah, that would work. Oh, he's played left guard and right tackle. I mean, that was like built in a lab for Ole Miss's offensive line this year.
Well, for those that don't remember, they've got a left-handed quarterback, so right tackle is most likely going to be a little bit different in the priority realm. This guy, let's just start with Xavier Hill right off the bat. Not a good player, Stephen. He is a big-time player. In the last 2 seasons combined at Memphis, and he's from Olive Branch, which is a suburb of Memphis, just over the Mississippi line, he had 1,756 snaps. As the saying goes, your greatest ability is your availability. If you played 1,756 snaps, we're good there. As for grades, and these are all Pro Football Focus, you can take them with a grain of salt, but this is probably a good sign all across the board. Overall offensive grade, 83.2, passing grade, 86.8, and then run blocking, 80.4. Anything over 70 is considered good. He's in the 80s on all 3 of those. I stopped looking at stats pretty much at that point. The only other thing that I brought up, out of all the times he was in pass protection, gave up 2 sacks and 7 pressures. Over 12 games, yeah, that's pretty good. So I would say that a guy that started at LSU as his career changed to Memphis, okay, he didn't play P4 the last few years, but he's 6'4", 320, grades high. He has experience at the P4 level. Memphis is probably the most consistent program at the G5 level over the last 10 years in some capacity. Norvell was there. They've had some good coaches there. I'd imagine that his price tag will not be friendly, but at the same time, you get what you pay for in the portal. Stephen, yes or no, you think the Rebels will be duly interested from the outset?
I don't know if they will. I think they should. I mean,
Okay.
This is a guy that would absolutely help you out both in the run game and in the pass game. And he plays the 2 positions that are probably the most important on your offensive line at the moment. And what I mean by that is he has played left guard and right tackle. I mean, those are going to be the 2 priority positions on the offensive line. And he's a 2-time all-conference player. He's originally from Ole Miss. Like I said, he was built in a lab for the Ole Miss offensive line, the spring transfer portal.
He grew up an hour from where Ole Miss is standing. That's kind of convenient. Same high school, I think, even as Walter Nolan, if I'm not mistaken. But
Conquistadors.
Yeah. Any kid from the Memphis area, to me, as far as SEC football goes, that's an Ole Miss area kid. That's the closest school because the state of Tennessee is so uniquely shaped. UT is on the far edge of the other side of the state. So I don't know, what are they, 4.5 hours away, something like that?
Tennessee's 6 away.
6? Oh, wow. So, yeah, it's one extreme to the other. So you're looking at a scenario where it's not really that important that it's state U. So Ole Miss is kind of the defunct state U. You know, it's cross state line. It's weird. Those kids could go anywhere. And the fact that he's technically from Olive Branch does not hurt Ole Miss's chances. Now, here's the question. Does a school like Ohio State, Oregon, Texas, somebody like that get involved? Because if they do, regardless of who ends up signing Xavier Hill, the price tag just went up. That'll be a bidding war. Does somebody like Ole Miss, who doesn't have, at least in theory, one recruitment can be different, but in theory, they don't have the same NIL as, I know they don't have Oregon's NIL. They don't have the greatest booster of all time, Phil Knight. I mean, come on. He owns Nike. Yeah. So anyway, but how much do you think they could go in? Like, I think he'll be $1.5 million or more for the year. I really do. If most of those schools want him at tackle, that's the key.
Yeah, the problem that Ole Miss could potentially have, the real problem is one university in Austin, Texas lost 4 out of their 5 offensive linemen in the offseason. And so this could always mean they're kind of the team behind the scenes. So you have to monitor that. Right. I think Ole Miss and Walker Jones, I had him on my show back, and he's like, hey, it's not all about throwing around money, because Ole Miss doesn't have the money of Texas and A&M and Texas Tech, honestly, all that oil money floating around. But they do say they have enough to where they can make a competitive offer. So they might not have the highest offer in the bidding process, but if the kid goes to Ole Miss, sees the staff, the NFL coaches that are on staff and all of that with a competitive offer, I think Ole Miss has a shot. If it just goes into a straight bidding war with somebody like Texas or SC or somebody like that, that's going to be problematic.
That's the question. And this is what makes the portal fascinating. I have nobody that I'm rooting for in this, and I don't know what the young man wants. Maybe he still wants to stay, quote unquote, relatively close to home, and Arkansas and Ole Miss are the only 2 schools he looks at. I mean, that's possible. Who knows? But if he's going to look broadly, the schools I mentioned, and the way, like, people don't know this, Texas Tech has insane NIL because they got serious oil money, like serious oil money. They just got David Bailey from Stanford, and I guarantee you the schools like Texas and Miami and all of them got involved too. He picked Tech quickly. That tells you all you need to know about them, just for an example.
Well, listen, was it Toppin, the basketball player that was just on their team? He just signed an NIL deal to re-up that's basically north of $4 million a year. So, yeah, they've got money.
That's not ridiculous. That's almost unfathomable.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So anyway, to make a long story short, you got to be careful of what you assume is a major player at NIL. It's not the same. Baylor's got money, et cetera. All those schools in Texas do. Who gets involved? On that note, we discussed before the show, Stephen, that possibly a DB, a safety, a corner, maybe both. And you brought up a guy, and I already had all his numbers written down for PFF, so I want to go with this. He's going to be in the portal. He played at Troy, which is obviously the state of Alabama. Pretty productive this last year. 566 snaps for LJ Green, 5'10", 170 pounds. Total defensive grade was 65.9. Run defense, 62.7. Tackling, 57.9. Coverage, 66.7. Now, he's a young guy. This next season, he'll only be a redshirt sophomore. He's played 1 year, and he redshirted the year before that. I'm not sure how the market will work for smaller guys anyway, but he played 566 snaps. It's Troy, it's not Bama, but he still played. And on top of that, this is the big part here. You're talking about a scenario where they had to depend on him all year to get that many snaps. So he's got some durability, or he wouldn't have racked up 566. Do you think schools like Ole Miss will at least kick the tires there? He's not the ideal size. He's not the 6'1", 190-pound corner. But, like, how do you set the market with a guy like that? Because there's more small guys, obviously. Do you think he gets a lot of SEC interest, Ole Miss, et cetera, or am I just out on a limb here?
I think it's going to come down to a coach's decision. Like, if you look at him and watch his film, you determine, okay, can he play boundary corner? Can he play field corner? Because if he can do both, that obviously increases his value to that person. If he's not a boundary guy because you view him as being too small or something like that, that could be problematic, because obviously if he's in the field, he's on an island to where you could be matched up with a 6'4", 6'5" plus SEC wide receiver. Stuff like that comes into play. Now, I do think that Ole Miss, there might not be in a position to say no in that. If they think he can play corner they're going to deal with the size speed ratio stuff on the football field because they need bodies at this point. Like Jalen Braxton, he's the transfer from Arkansas. I'm assuming he is going to play the boundary position. He's going to physical up and do all of that. So if Lane Kiffin thinks that he can play the field position and you not get victimized, and those young safeties that we've talked about, those guys and Sage Ryan and all that don't get victimized downfield because of his size speed ratio, yeah, you sign him.
I like players that have had production. I'll take that over the guy that's quote unquote ranked high out of high school, rode the pine at Bama or Tennessee or whatever school, because you've seen college film. That means the kid has studied, he's taken to the coaching, they trust him, and he's played. It's boom or bust with the guys that were 5 stars that haven't played yet. Ask Mike Norvell at Florida State. They busted last year, taking Georgia and Bama kids. It didn't work out, and then Florida State went 2-10.
Well,
so,
a lot of that had to do with DJ Uiagalelei.
Yeah, that guy was terrible. But that was another one, though. Like, he wasn't that good, and they took him. I'm like, what are you doing? But that's another story. That's a rabbit hole I don't want to go down.
My hot take right now is Bama better watch out when they go to Tallahassee. That is my hot take at the moment.
I think it wouldn't shock me because college football is full of those stories. It just is. That's why college football is so wild. When we come back, we're going to talk about a little Ole Miss recruiting mixed in with a little more portal here on the Portal Podcast. Get the supplies you need from the site made for the skilled trades, Supply House. Whether you're into plumbing, HVAC, or electrical work, Supply House is the reliable way to order products online. Their easy-to-use website is packed with helpful resources and the latest product info to help you get the job done right. Plus, with a complete inventory of over 200,000 parts from 400-plus top brands, you'll find exactly what you need delivered fast, coast to coast. If you need help with an order, Supply House offers expert support and industry-leading service, so you'll always talk to a real person. And for the trade pros looking for an extra edge, their free Trade Master program offers exclusive perks like a dedicated phone line, free shipping, and discounts on every order. Thousands of skilled professionals are already taking advantage. Now it's your turn. Join the Trade Master program today at supplyhouse.com/TM and start ordering plumbing, HVAC, and electrical supplies with just a few clicks. Plus, use promo code SH5 for 5% off of your first order. That's supplyhouse.com. Stephen, to finish up on our portal, then move into recruiting, this is a really unique scenario because the SEC, it's a little easier to get kids if you go after them to come into the league. But how much do you think Lane is going to prioritize keeping his roster together, not losing guys to the portal, as opposed to trying to add to the roster? Like last year, Ohio State won the title, and they got a few guys out of the portal, don't get me wrong, quarterback included, but they spent money to keep both DNs. They spent money on other players that could have transferred. They added really good players, and then they paid some other guys just to make sure. Which route do you think Lane Kiffin and the Rebs are going to go?
I think as Ole Miss's roster gets better, it's going to be more about retention than acquisition. The main thing on the offseason, everybody, as you can imagine, was going after Suntarine Perkins. Everybody.
Shocker.
Yeah. And so Ole Miss had to really step up and negotiate with him, and obviously he was able to do that. If you look at that, that's going to affect your ability to overpay in the acquisition market. Maybe you couldn't go get an Eric Singleton because you were doing all this acquiring. So as Ole Miss's roster gets better on the high school end and on what they have on the roster coming back, I think you're going to see less and less acquisition, but it's always going to be an avenue for Ole Miss.
So they're going to play it a little bit differently, because the way I'm reading it from your comments, and you tell me, Stephen, they've acquired enough talent now where, sure, they're going to add portal talent, but the high school ranks have pulled their weight far more than it used to, say, 10 years ago, even 5 years ago at Ole Miss. So they can be more selective with who they bring out of the portal.
Yeah, look at the portal this year. Normally, just about everybody goes out and tries to find a defensive tackle. I mean, that is kind of the magic bullet around college football. But you have Cam Franklin, Suntarine Perkins, Jam Brown, Xavier Harris, William Eccles. Those are all Mississippi high school level defensive linemen, Jeffrey Rush, Cam Beavers. These are all people that were acquired basically since Pete Golding has been at Ole Miss. And because of that, Ole Miss didn't have to go in those really expensive positions of edge and defensive tackles in the transfer portal. And maybe they were able to sign 3 linebackers just in case your evaluation doesn't hit, which your evaluation doesn't always hit. And because of that, you're able to sign 3 guys because odds are one of them will hit.
There you go. Numbers matter. No matter how good a kid is, it's difficult. I literally watch film every day of the year. There are some things you just can't project. Just to put this out there, you can watch a kid in college. You can watch a kid in high school, both, but you don't know how they're going to adjust to any given school when they change to the lifestyle, to the coach that they're around, to the scheme. Those are just guesses, especially at quarterback where most of the position is played above the shoulders. Film is not going to help me. It's just not. Offensive line is really hard. How are you going to work with the other guys around you? How do I know? So it's difficult, but if you get the high school kids in and they go through the normal process where they can work with them for a year or two before they got to play, that's the best route. If you look at the teams that made it to the playoffs last year and did something, almost all of them were primarily high school route. Arizona State was kind of the outlier. Like they were the Cinderella of the tournament, and Boise got in because they were the G5 school that went in. But you're going to see maybe one Arizona State a year. That's about it. Whoever the Big 12 rep is, because they don't recruit the same, and I don't expect any of them to ever really win it unless something changes. But it's really hard to win unless you're doing what Ole Miss is now doing in recruiting well out of the high school ranks. To that point, I just want to bring up a couple of guys, not a lot of recruiting to talk about, but the following caught my attention. You can do official visits in April, but very few do it. Felix Ojo and Johnny Jones, 2 offensive tackles, ironically, are supposed to visit Ole Miss per Inside the Rebels 24/7. It's hard to find tackles on either side of the ball, defensive or offensive. Do you think the Rebels are going to go kind of like they did a couple of years ago with Eccles and all those guys? Is this going to be a big O-line, D-line class? What is the objective there? Those 2 are guys that have offers all across the country. Felix Ojo by 24/7, they got him number 7 nationally. Where do you think that stands? Is this going to be a big class for the linemen for the Rebs?
This one feels like it might be a big class for the offense, not necessarily the offensive line, because if you look at the quarterback position, Steve Wiltfong of On3 put in a crystal ball or whatever that is for Landon Duckworth just the other day.
Right.
And Tristan Keys is available. All of those wide receivers, Jace Matthews, Xavier McDonald, all of those are top 100 level guys. Ole Miss is in on big time tight ends. Felix Ojo, as you mentioned, there's a lot of top 100. Offensively, this could be the class that kind of creates a super team a little bit, depending on how the quarterback position goes, because there's no guarantee that you're not going to land Landon Duckworth and Ryder Lyons. And that's absolutely ridiculous to say at the moment, but I mean, it's real. And there's also like Reese Wise and Luke Fahey, some 3-star quarterbacks that are good players. Ole Miss ending up with 3 quarterbacks in one class. I mean, it's not probable, but it's definitely possible.
Ole Miss is in a very unique scenario based on who's available in state. You got to recruit your in state. They've done a much better job of that since Lane Kiffin has been in Oxford. But let me give you a backstory for those who don't know who Jace Matthews is. I had a chance to speak with Deuce Knight the other day, and he was just talking about knowing Jace and some of the other guys in the state, Tristan Keys and all that. He said Jace is an even better athlete. He said he could dunk a basketball in 9th grade, jump up in the air, and take it through his legs in 9th grade and dunk it. I'm like, what? He goes, no, I'm serious. I'm like, oh, my God. So the talent in state like that, you have to go where it's hot. Like if it's an in-state kid like that, of course, Lane likes receivers anyway. Jace Matthews, Tristan Keys, and there's probably about 5 receivers in the state this year. If any of them signed with the Rebels, you should be big thumbs up if you're an Ole Miss fan. It was just random. Like Deuce told me that. I just saw him in passing, and I was just like, oh, my God. So if you go out and sign 4 receivers in this class and oversign, don't be surprised. If they can get the in-state key, Xavier McDonald, I don't care which one it is. They're all really good. That makes sense. But back to that point again, linemen in the portal are super expensive. If you have a chance to hit on them, especially offensive tackle and defensive tackle, if I'm deciding on the last scholarship and the other guy's a linebacker, it's the lineman every time. That's how I look at it. Outside of like a Suntarian Perkins who could have played about anything in the front seven, there's just not many chances I'm not taking a lineman. Yeah. So it's really, really unique. When we come back, I want to finish up the show talking a little bit about spring practice, what's next with Ole Miss, injury news, all of that next here on the Portal Podcast. We have the end of spring. We haven't heard a ton about what's going on, just rumors about this guy's beat up, that and the other. I mean, Lane keeps some of it to himself because he's Lane Kiffin. He is the most difficult guy to read ever with a tweet. Now, it's one of the reasons I like following it, whole other subject. But is there any position that you're concerned about in terms of guy, just, that dumb luck where it went against you and one position got beat up, anything like that you've heard of, or anybody emerging in spring, anything like that for the Rebels?
To my knowledge, nobody has been injured at the point that would threaten their fall season. So that's good news. But Lane Kiffin in spring practice, his whole goal is to make spring practice as worthless as it can be to the outside. To him, he wants it to make sense and he can see what's going through. But to the media covering, they're not going to be able to make heads or tails of it. For instance, Lane Kiffin absolutely does not try to have a depth chart, avoids it at all costs during spring practice. So players are running in and out and all of that just because of the late transfer portal window in the spring. Nobody's like, oh, I'm fourth string, I need to get in the portal, because it's not going to play. So he doesn't do depth chart. And also he puts players randomly in black jerseys from time to time, which is the injury jersey at Ole Miss. So when the media is out there, they could be going through drills as normal, wearing a black jersey, and they're going to talk about that this player is injured. And whenever you ask about a position group, inevitably, Lane Kiffin's going to talk about how beat up he is in that group. Now, I'm not saying none of this is true, because it could very well be. I'm saying he's intentionally making it as opaque as possible for anybody to get a real read on the situation. We'll see. He did this last year, and by the time they went into the fall season, they were in the middle of fall, still trying to piece their offensive line together. And you get to the point in the Kentucky game, you wonder if there was the continuity of that. So we need to see if that's going to survive once that happens. But, I mean, from what I can tell, listening to Lane, he really likes the wide receivers on this football team. I mean, really likes them. He likes Austin Simmons. You can tell that by the fact that he didn't go out and try and find somebody to replace him in the offseason. And he's nervous about the defensive backs because you have young safeties, you have Sage Ryan, you have some evals and some guys that are injured that's not playing very much. So I'm anticipating in the transfer portal, Ole Miss is going to hit the defensive back room. And we'll see when it comes to the offensive line, because Patrick Kutas has been snapping, playing center for Ole Miss because Bryson Sanders has been injured. But Kutas is going to be that right guard, and Bryson Sanders is eventually going to be the center. So a lot of unknowns when it comes to Ole Miss spring football. They're going to be fine. They have weapons. Their front seven on defense is going to be really good. Their passing game on offense is going to be really good. If they can run the ball consistently and they can play a little bit of pass defense, this has a chance to be a pretty good football team.
I think Ole Miss has a chance to make the playoff because of Austin Simmons, Lane as a play caller, and what I would perceive to be probably one of the more underrated defensive fronts. Not just because of Perkins, that's the easy. I mean, that's low-hanging fruit. He's probably going to be all conference this upcoming season, but I think they're going to have more depth and be able to rotate. So games 9, 10, 11, and 12 where everybody's beat up. I don't care who you are. At least you have somebody coming in the lineup, whether he's starting or rotating, that's a hoss that can move guys. Pick like Eccles is a guy you and I laughed about when he was being like, he's going to be really good. He's underrated. We knew he was going to play. Now everybody's going to get to see it in droves, but you can't teach that kind of frame. Ole Miss has more of that, and it's just going to help you. A 5-yard game becomes a 2-yard game. If you're an offense, 2nd and 8 sucks. So their defensive front, I think, is going to be a major factor with them. Stephen, tell everybody where they can find your work.
You can find my channel at Locked On Ole Miss on YouTube. It's going to be hosted by Brian Smith Monday, Wednesday, and Friday starting next week. So you can get your recruiting feel about that as well. You can follow me on Twitter. You can follow Brian. You see his Twitter address there, LO_the portal. Those are all good ways to do it. Listen to us to wherever you get your podcast, all of that stuff. It should be a lot of fun. But I should be out about 3 weeks to 6 weeks, somewhere around there. Brian's going to take care of everybody on Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. And I have some evergreens with Locked On SEC folks on Tuesday. And I did a pre-recorded show called Why I Hate, and it involves the 8 teams that Ole Miss plays in the SEC this year that's going to air on Thursday. So tune in to that. And then I'm going to be back annoying everybody probably sometime in mid-May.
There you go. There you go. You can find the Portal Podcast wherever you get your pods, just like Locked On Ole Miss, Odyssey, Spotify, Apple, YouTube, and everywhere else. Please like and subscribe. Give us a 5-star review if you're listening on audio. Everybody have a good one. Take care.